Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Pierre, and today we'll be learning how to wax a snowboard. I've done this many times. I've had a lot of people ask me questions on how this is done, so that's what we're going to do. We'll get right into it. So materials that you'll need include Windex or some isopropyl alcohol. I prefer the alcohol because it dries much quicker. Need a little rag to make sure you wipe the base down so there's no dirt or anything else getting into your wax job. All important iron, that's how we're going to melt the wax. I've got some wax here. It's 21 degree Fahrenheit to 10 degree Fahrenheit. And got assorted scrapers here, got a screwdriver, tape measure. I'll show you what that's all about. I'll probably be sharpening my edges today as well, so got myself a couple of files, an edge tuner, and of course your favorite beverage is always a good idea because this takes a little while. Alright, so first things first, we're going to need our tape measure, and we got to take the bindings off. It's not totally necessary to take the bindings off, but I've found that if you leave them on, you do wind up kind of messing with the inserts that are in the board. It's kind of user preference. If you get a new board every year, go ahead and do it with the bindings on. Not a big deal. If you're like me, who likes to get the most time out of their board, I would take the bindings off. So cool. Grab our tape measure. I like to use this little sewing one because it's just easier to move around. I like to measure from toe to toe. And I've got about 17 inches, we'll say. I know where I like my boards, and this will be going right back in the same exact spot. So without further ado, we'll take the bindings off. I always use a nice Phillips number 3 head. Does a really good job not stripping the bolts out. And yeah, just go ahead and crack all of them. Take them all off. And we'll be back in a sec. I like isopropyl alcohol because it doesn't really take long to dry, and it does a super good job cleaning the base. So go ahead, squirt some on your rag, and make sure you wipe this thing down super well. We want to get this board nice and warm. Make sure your iron is set to a pretty low setting so that you don't delaminate your snowboard. It takes a lot to delaminate a snowboard, but just know that it is possible. What this will do is allow wax to kind of work itself into the pores. If your board's too cold, then it doesn't really accept wax as easily, and therefore you have to wax more often. So important step here, some people like to put it into a box of sorts that's nice and warm, maybe a bathroom with a heater on. Either way, doesn't really matter how you do it. I like to use the iron. Takes a little more time, but it's all fun for me. I've got Travis Rice here snowboarding in the background. Give me some inspiration. Yeah, just have fun with it. It's about time to start dripping some wax all over this thing. Pay special attention to your inserts. They tend to stay a little cooler for longer, so those parts get a little less wax for whatever reason, so you want to make sure those are nice and warm. Now we're ready to drip some wax on our snowboard. This is about the time when you want to make sure your iron is nice and warm, a little bit hotter than before when you were just warming up your board. That way you can drip the wax pretty quickly. Not the end of the world if you do it slow. Just, again, saves time if your iron's a little warmer. I've got this really old thrift shop iron. It's been working really well for me. I tend to sit around rayon and wool, if that makes sense. I don't know if you can see that. But either way, you're just going to go from tip to tail, and you're going to get a bunch of wax on here. Too little, it'll be hard to spread around. Too thick, and you're just going to be scraping more off later. So just make sure you've got nice even coverage everywhere. I always like to start on one end and kind of zigzag my way up there. Now, I don't like to worry too much about my tip and tail because naturally those aren't touching the ground that much. But make sure you get your edges super well, because that tends to be where you kind of forget the majority of your wax. Keep that close by just in case you need more. But go ahead and just start running your wax over. Try and spread it out nice and evenly all across your snowboard. Pay special attention to making sure every inch of your snowboard's covered. Again, I said the nose and tail aren't super important, but you don't want to be doing an ollie or nollie or something and, you know, if that be slower, you end up catching the nose or something on the snow. That would not be fun. You want to be moving pretty quick with the iron because, again, it is a lot warmer than when you were just warming the snowboard up. You want to be very careful not to leave it in one spot for too long. Your snowboard will hate you if you do. You might be able to notice some parts are getting cooler faster, if that makes sense. They tend to dry a little quicker. Keep running your iron over there because that'll allow that wax to sit into those pores a little nicer. If the wax is cooling down too fast, it's not quite getting into the pores. So you want to pay attention to your wax. If it's smoking, you've got your iron way too hot, okay? You want to make sure this is melting that wax pretty easily without smoking the wax. Once you feel pretty good about distribution of your wax, how the wax has been accepted into the pores of your snowboard, you'll be able to tell. It'll be kind of cooling down a lot slower than you're used to. That's because the board's warm and it's allowing that wax to go into the pores. Once you're pretty confident that the board has accepted all the wax that it could possibly want, it's time to move on to the next step. Go ahead and turn that iron off. I like to wipe it off on a cloth of sorts just to make sure that there's no wax left on it. Go ahead and turn her off and set her aside. And let the snowboard cool itself down, anywhere from 15 minutes to a half hour. Perfect time for your favorite beverage, and go take a little break. Maybe watch some snowboard videos or play outside with your dog. Do whatever you enjoy doing. We'll be back in a sec. Cheers. Welcome back, everyone. We've given our board a chance to cool down here. It's nice and cool to the touch. And it's about time to get ready to go and scrape our snowboard. I like to do that outside because it's a huge mess. So we'll move out there in a second. But first I wanted to talk about getting our scrapers ready. A lot of people don't think about this, but this is a very crucial step. I know I'm not going to ruin my board because there's probably a millimeter of wax sitting on top of my base, so I'm not too worried right now. What I like to do, make sure that you're pretty good 90 degrees, and you just want to run it along the file until you have a nice sharp side. Nice and sharp. I like to do all the sides because you might need a smaller part of the scraper for whatever reason. And it's always nice to be able to switch to the other side when you need a sharper side. Perfect. Sweet. Nice and sharp. We're ready to go outside. One tip about scraping your snowboard off, you want to make sure you get all of the wax off your snowboard. The whole point of this waxing process is to get wax inside the cores. You don't want wax sitting on your base. That's just going to make everything a whole lot slower. Now that we're done scraping it off, we'll go back inside. Alright, so we're back inside, and one thing we forgot to do outside is scrape the edges. A little tool like this, a little corner pocket thing, very useful for that. You just go ahead and run that along your edge, making sure there is no wax stuck to your edge. Once you've got the edges scraped off, it's time to polish the board. I like to use a cork pad, cork block of sorts for this. A Scotch pad, you know, like one of those scrubby things works really well as well. But cork just kind of leaves a nice finish. It takes out all those lines that you made while scraping, and it just makes it nice and smooth, ready to just do a really good job sliding on snow. You guys might not have noticed earlier, but I have my little supervisor with me. Come here, Cassie. Come here. Come here. Got my supervisor with me. She's a cutie. Little border collie. This is my buddy Dusty's dog. She loves me, but he's out riding right now at Monarch Resort. And she's staying with me for the time being. He'll be back later on to pick her up. She's a good girl. That's a good girl. Yeah. Once you're done polishing your snowboard with that cork block, it leaves a really nice finish. It's time to put the bindings back on. I put my bindings over here. Go ahead and grab those. And you know, I have a pretty good idea of where I put these normally, but if you remember from earlier, we measured this out to make sure it was in the same spot as before. I go 15, negative 15 on my bindings. Make sure you've got the right one on the correct side. Bindings are always coming from in to out. A lot easier to strap in that way. Some people just forget that thought. So we'll go ahead and line them up inside the holes. Give this a quick measurement just to make sure we're spot on here. I mount mine right in the middle, 30 degrees away from each other, and that seems to be the most comfortable spot for me. Make sure you play around with your stance and see what exactly you like, how wide, how skinny. You know, everyone's knees work a different way, but just go ahead and put those in. Now that our bindings are attached, we're done waxing our snowboard and it's time to go ride. If you guys would like to see more content like this, I'll be making a lot of tutorials on the resort. Me and my friends are snowboard instructors at Crested Butte Mountain Resort, and we just love to snowboard. As well as tutorials, we will be putting on little edits and things throughout the year, hoping to be posting about once a week. Still learning how to edit, so hopefully you guys enjoy. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe if you want, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thanks for watching.